Hello, and welcome to Resolve, an after-play show. This is an after show for a role-playing game that does not have an actual play, where we tell you all the details of our game so you don't have to listen to it. Hi, I'm Sammie, I'll be your host. My pronouns are she, her, and I play Isiri, the Hope of the Abyss. Joining me today is my wonderful co-host, Alex.
Hi, I'm Alex. I play the Malboro Juice and his companions, the Smogs. All of us use he, him pronouns.
We are joined today by Dee.
Hello, it's me again. I am Dee, and you can use whatever pronouns you want for me except for it. I will cry profusely if you do that. I play Geyser, and Geyser has a mission. I don't know what that is, but it is a mission.
We are also joined today by Daniel.
Hello, my name is Daniel. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm the game master for this campaign.
Welcome, thank you for joining us today. Now that we're all here, Alex, why don't you tell us about the actual play?
Previously, in EFFETE, Athenos appears with the rest of the party back in Chrysalis as the configuration collapses and Tao's hallways take hold. World Core take time to handle tasks outside of the threat of governance and finding a way home. Isiri takes Terra with her to Earth to retrieve the mermaid. She collapses the portal back on the way out. Smog returns to Lemus and Charlene with Tao. They summon several Smogs from their timelines, who in turn summon more Espers and Charlene's party members from other doomed timelines. Under Atomos' guidance, and Smog's sacrifice, the timelines merge. Tao returns to Chrysalis, and a day later, Smog and Juice, fresh from the world of the lost, connected to the world of ages, appear there as well. Everyone reconvenes for a party at Clam's Karaoke for an anniversary celebration. Isiri and Patty are married, and Isiri is learning to read comics. Tao comes with Hanabi, who has been helping them make some alterations and traveling with them. Poni comes with Horsefly, who she has been adventuring with. Smog returns from the escapades in the world of motion. Geyser has been aiding in making homes for mermaids and tried to organize other imaginary friends in her homeworld. Aura finally admits their feelings for Allroot. Terra visits a world, tracking it down from her earlier memories of world travel. They meet Tanya, currently working on her own methods and practices for world travel. She claims to have experience containing the other and another. She orchestrates a reunion of Terra's original group.
Now that you've heard the actual play, let's do a deep dive into the session. This session.
This was it.
We're wrapping up loose ends. It's all getting tied together. And it actually came out pretty cleanly, all things considered.
It's okay, I made things messy.
You did. You made things a horrible disaster, and I loved it.
Count on Smog for that.
Opened it up with the general impacts of what everyone had done, and then open it up for people to submit what they wanted to have happened with their characters. I distinctly got two bigger walls of text from Sammie and Alex. These are definitely going to have to be their own scenes. They can't just happen completely off camera.
Don't worry about it. I will keep writing walls of text until I get what I need.
This is just a pattern with me finishing off games. When we finished off the vampire game with Sammie, I wrote something that ended up becoming a hook for another adventure, maybe.
It was a perfect framework for the end of that, too.
No, I'm here for it.
Dan had to remind me to send what I was doing, because it totally eclipsed my mind. I thought of, like, 3 things, and Dan was like, perfect! We can do that! He accepted this way too quickly. What's going on?
I'm usually good for pretty much anything. It all made sense.
I was just worried that, like, everyone's things was gonna be, like, conflicting, but I think the way that Geyser paid off all the effort that I put in the beginning was that I floundered kind of in the middle, but once I figured her out with the help of Alex, actually, everything led itself to its own natural conclusion. So it wasn't like I had to think fantastically about what Geyser has to do. What does it make sense to do?
It's like the natural progression.
Sometimes endings don't have to be as complicated as Alex and I have made them.
It's natural for Smog to have a complex ending based on the things that we built up, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I couldn't have done something simple with Smog.
That's okay. We love him for it.
Yeah.
But why don't we talk about where we wake up? Because we wake up immediately after the configuration collapsed. So we're all standing outside of the portal that we walked into the configuration on. Athenos has been kicked out, so he's just there. All the NPCs are gone. It's just the party. So
when I was preparing for the session, saying like, okay, what does everyone want? Well, we need some way of reuniting with Athenos because he had just been missing up to that point. So we needed to explain where he was and how he can reunite with the rest of everyone.
yeah, I think it makes sense because like where are the two places he would get kicked to? Either his world or here.
Gotta get ready for the new system update with Tau. Can't just rely on the old
Yeah.
reversal, whatever weird stuff was going on in the configuration before.
We catch up with Athenos for a little bit, explain what went down within the configuration, and we talk about future plans a little bit. Athenos can challenge anyone they want, really, from any world. It's another matter if they accept that challenge.
That was my insert. Ironically, a reality check coming from Geyser. Like, Thanos was like, I'm gonna fight everybody. Because it's like, we just did all that. My guy, I know you're excited, but we've done a lot of fighting. Let's take a measured approach here.
We might have already been challenged enough.
We were brought through the ringer, that's for sure.
Smog is like, I got my first thing on my checklist I gotta get done because there's so much stuff that's been set up. Gotta get juice back, tossed in the portal.
Smog basically set out to ensure that all of the timelines would be correctly brought together.
What a Herculean task, and Hercules isn't even here.
I'll leave this scene off on getting some food, talking about how Geyser has been to concerts before.
We were talking about our future plans. Tao was like, I might go on a celebration tour through all the worlds. And I was like, concerts are popular in my world, but I've never been to one.
Yeah.
And then the entire party's like, you were in several.
Performed at one, kind of.
It's like, does that count though? If I'm like not at the concert to be entertained, does that count? And then they're like, yeah, it does. And then I'm like, well, I guess I've been to a concert.
It's okay, now Geyser can explore concerts on their own terms. We break for lunch, and Daniel kind of gives us an overview of some of the stuff that starts happening in the interim. The big one is Terra steps down as the captain to make way for a more standard government now that they're in a stable peacetime. Isiri's like, no, illegal, you can't do that, you're the captain.
Following the last session, writing down what some of these impacts were, it made me more interested in the socio-political situation going on.
An old person who sees power in war and lets go of it in peacetime, that's how you can tell it's fiction.
Yeah.
I've been reading a lot of science fiction, old short stories. This is like a science fiction thing, but it added some more of that human factor to it.
It makes a lot of sense, right? If we're no longer actively at war, Terra doesn't need to be there. They weren't in it for the power, they were in it for
Earth.
Their goals have technically been achieved, so now they have to move on to the next thing.
Also, the huge reality check from Isiri in the last session where you're like, you are the governance now! And Terra's like, oh shit, am I the drama? Am I the problems?
I designed Terra to intentionally have some faults. I didn't want them to be completely justified in like everything that they were doing. Not always like even making the right choices. Did Terra make the best decisions for everyone? You could argue one way or the other for that.
I fucking love Terra.
I'm glad.
Terra's so fucking complicated. They've fucked up so many times. Hopeful that whatever she chooses to do going forward here, she doesn't forget where she came from. Terra announces that once the government is stable, they're leaving their position as captain, and at this point in time, Isiri's, I need to talk to you. Between the time of that announcement and us coming back from the configuration, now that the configuration has collapsed, I've been sort of using the configuration as the explanation for why the Abyss doesn't have the Omega God powers they should have. Like, don't get me wrong, Isiri's really fucking powerful, but there's more that they should be able to do. But now the configuration is collapsed, the bubble around the connection to all of that is gone, So she's returned to full power, and she's returned to all of her memories in the last X thousand of years since she was thrown forward in time for this event. And she's like, I wasn't here. I fucked up. There's a lot of shit I could have stopped / altered had I been conscious of these things going on, but I missed those thousands and thousands of years. I need to talk to Terra. Terra's in a bad place right now. They have a conversation where Isiri's like, I'm sorry. I didn't do you, a creature of Earth who I am aligned with, the justice I should have. I should have stopped this from happening. I'm still going to hold you to the value you made us in the configuration, but I still think you deserve something for seeing your goal to the end, making it through all this terrible shit, and not walking down that time loop over and over again. Hopefully we've changed it now. So please come back with me. I'm going to go collect the mermaids. If you want to see Earth from the past, now's your chance. And Terra agrees.
I didn't know how to handle Earth in that context, but it did coincide really nicely with the fact that Isiri needed to bring mermaids over, which also explains a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, I'm fixing a time loop. We're fixing the governance problem. We're fixing why humans never discovered mermaids in our timeline. We're fixing, hopefully, the environmental stuff, which I'll get to in a second. Ideally, knock on wood, please. Please. It just feels right. It feels like we've moved on. We've pushed past this terrible time skip and time loop. It feels right for Terra to be there. The series invested a lot of energy in Terra as a champion. If we ever come back to this world, I would like to see them together more. Isiri uses her powers to take Terra to a couple different places, seashores, where Terra's just sort of in silent contemplation. What is she thinking about?
Terra had a prior conviction to go back to Earth and intercede before the governance would have arrived. The conversation and the configuration gave Terra pause. Terra needed to spend some time thinking about herself in the context of her prior goals, since they were not going to happen in the same way, and needed to readjust.
Glad it weighed heavy. I'm glad that came across, because I was like, oh my god, I'm just rambling for like 30 minutes.
I had a lot of information from what people were interested in, but I didn't want to just, I wanted to experience it with everyone.
Following that, Isiri brings Terra back down to the rest of the mermaids. Isiri's sister did what she was asked to do, collected as many mermaids as possible, and Isiri gets them all to go through the portal. Right before she and Terra leave, the Abyss does what the Abyss does best, which isn't direct action, but is influence. Slightly moves a whale northward towards Bermuda. The sounds of it are caught on a hydrophone. This is a real life story, but I'm not going to extrapolate much beyond this. I don't really want to talk for the actual events of history. There's a particular doctor who heard whale songs off of the coast of Bermuda, and that started the Save the Whales movement, which stopped, whale hunting and everything. So hopefully this action destroys the time loop once and for all, and that the Earth doesn't actually get so bad. The governance comes back. We've convinced Terra not to jump down this hole. They head back through the portal, and Isiri destroys it forever, because the Abyss can't have people jumping to the past, and it would not be great if other things found a portal in the depths of the ocean. That route is closed forever, but not in a sad way, in just a moving forward way.
I do like, Dan, that you described the preparations for the mermaids as adequate. Exactly the right word to be there's more work needs to be done, but no one's gonna die right away.
Yeah.
If you think about the time frame and compare that to what's needed to terraform a planet, it's honestly not a lot. But there were definitely some very key sacrifices that were made along the way to ensure that it would at least be enough for the time being. It's what made all of the difference. If these hadn't been done, if you all hadn't spent so much time between trying to further humanity's goals by connecting worlds together, looking into what mermaids need, they might not have been able to survive on.
Geyser helped. We got all of the marine biology department on this project. We recruited Al Rayoun for this too.
From there, we switch over to Smog and Tau heading back to Smog's homeworld.
This would be the last of the instances that we directly saw the actual homeworlds that y'all came from. But Smog had some really important things to do.
Yeah. So Smog has sent juice back to the world of Assembly to leave with that version of Smog. All of them head back to their proper timeline, so no one hears chatter from them over the interworld communications anymore. But Smog's big plan is to head back to his homeworld and make sure that things with Charlene are in order by having himself and Tao summon just a billion versions of himself, cascading out from whatever versions they can catch on to with their own moves. Have those summon a bunch of espers so that those are available and not just under the main antagonist of Smog's game's control, and also use that to connect Charlene to these other timelines where her other party members are still alive. When Dan gave me Charlene alone in a tent in Final Fantasy, I was like, so this is a world of ruin. A common recurring theme in Final Fantasy is that like the 50 to 75% like flag of the main game, everything goes to shit.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do we use that concept and the time travel shenanigans that I've built up? How do those things meet? And I was like, well, I guess Smog gets the party back together. I guess in game it would look like there's a little episode for each of the main party members where they have to have Smog back in their party, but it's a different Smog. And then all these shenanigans go down and they have access to the Alexander summon or something.
Yeah. Smog's case in particular was intricate because not only did Smog have a homeworld, but this Smog was also in connection to alternate realities, alternate histories related to that homeworld. I was very satisfied with this as a form of coalescence of all of that.
I also wanted to like pay off the connection with Tao and have Smog explain it as this is a big version of you merging yourself back together. These different things are broken, and the only way to stabilize them is to force them back like you with yourself.
Yeah.
This is such a video gamey solution, which is so perfect for Smog. I was sitting there going like, what the fuck is happening? And then it clicked, and I was like, oh!
It's also a very Final Fantasy way to sacrifice yourself.
Oh, yeah.
This does end the multiple timelines of Smog. After all the summons dissipate into stars, thank you for that touch, Dan, that was cool. There's just one Smog left, leaking little frills of mana. If you've ever played Final Fantasy X, Fireflies would be the exact appearance.
God, how many times must we die?
Did Smog ever get his game of Blitzball?
Yeah, we did some Blitzball.
Okay, we did a little bit of Blitzball. I was like, if so, it's like, man, sacrifice for nothing.
Wow.
The thing I really wanted to hone in on is that Smog was not making a sacrifice.
That's fair.
This is the end of his story. I said that when this Smog was introduced. He goes to Charlene. He's trying to thank him for this. He's like, no, I just gave you another chance to do what you want. I know you're going to do your heroics, but after that, you need to be selfish. You need to learn from me, and like, you can't keep giving yourself up in this. That's what killed you all last time.
Yeah, that is fair.
And part of that is I wanted to pay off all 3 of my playbooks with this ending, so that's paying off the dark. I'm giving you what seems like bad advice. What seems like you're doing something evil and selfish. But maybe this is good this time.
What did Zach say? You're the only person that's regressed 2 playbooks at the end of the game?
Oh, no, that was me.
That was
I
you?
said,
Okay.
you're the only person who well, and that's a little bit later, too. The OG Smog before the playbook change eventually appears on Chrysalis afterwards. From that description, it kind of clicked with me. Like, oh, yeah, you undid 2 playbook changes of transformation.
Smog heads over to Tao as part of this, and it's like, it's the end for me, but you got as much time as you want. The group has as much time as they want. I'm going to be back soon. Kind of trying to say, like, don't be sad, and then disperses completely.
I'm not gonna lie, I thought you were gonna kiss him. I thought you were like, hey, Tao, come here, and then they kiss, and then they poof into butterflies.
Smog had started this game struggling with his role in the whole cosmic space. The Mughals are supposed to be one of the connections between Espers and the mortal world. And I thought it was really great that in this really roundabout turn of events that Smog was able to fulfill that in a pretty profound way by literally bringing Espers back to a world that no longer had access to them.
But by also, in a way, kind of compromising his morals for his vision. He did not want to have to summon things. He did not want to be immortal in control of a higher power. But he had to sacrifice that in order to see the world as he wanted.
Like, all those times that Smog used ultimate form as well was kind of a way of summoning, too. Do you think maybe Smog kind of came to terms with the fact that summoning could be an ethically justified thing depending on the forces that you're opposing with them?
I think he comes to that like two different ways, because there are two significantly like branching paths of Smog, which is Alexander directly coming to him and being like, you got to use my power to live, so you got to use my power. And then wanting an alternate path where he doesn't have to sacrifice so much for himself and asking Tau to grant him power, and then being okay with emulating the other Espers in order to bring them back. But it all still coalesces in that compromise.
That's really telling of how much time and how much everyone else has rubbed off on Smog from the party. Because at the beginning of the game, Isiri and Smog had a fight about summoning, and they didn't really come to a compromise.
After this version of Smog disappears, the Smog and Juice that vanished earlier from the World of the Lost in the World of Ages appear on Chrysalis.
They're back, babe.
Long time later. To them, did it feel instantaneous?
Yeah. They didn't notice anything that went on. They had to be filled in.
They really need to be filled in.
Tau's like, oh man, do I got a slideshow for you?
Technically, this would be a version of Smog that hadn't met Tau again, but we don't handle that in-game. So
don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It's like 50 first dates. We just get a new VHS tape each morning.
Part of why it doesn't matter is because the next scene is a jump ahead in time to Clem's karaoke. At this point, Smog has been doing some engineering, had tried to like hunt down the governance for a little bit before doing that, decided to take a vacation. This vacation actually turned into him time traveling in his first escapade back to help World Core find a World Core and coming back. So this was Smog going to the World of Motion, hanging out with Tau in the cabin, and coming back to Clem's karaoke.
A few people said that their individual characters spent time traveling between worlds. Others spent their times helping out on Chrysalis. Everyone realized that each other was in town at one point, and they decided to meet up for a little reunion.
Yeah. And we're better than the karaoke bar, am I right? Where we can totally talk and understand each other.
This is like a little aside, but Zach's Sentinels game, he was trying to have us meet at a bar for some reason. So it's like, oh yeah, my character goes to this place all the time. It's a billiards hall and Broadway bar, which would never work in real life.
No.
But it's a Supers game. They have some sort of ridiculous technology. I'm sure like sound deaden outside the table or whatever.
Of silence.
Athenos is here with Hercules in a belated Jimmy Buffett gear because they weren't there for that cutscene in the World of Song.
So Thanos is turned for a beach episode.
Hell yeah.
Poni now has swept bangs, is with Horsefly in a knight's helm.
Hell yeah, brother. Isiri and Powder got married. Isiri is given a disc locket from Powder, which was a memento from her parents. Powder and Isiri have moved into a lighthouse. The big portal into the configuration was probably moved out of town because it's kind of in the way, but they didn't want to destroy it. They moved it just outside of town as like a monument. It's like, oh, what if people just like randomly sometimes accidentally get warped in through here?
Oh man.
So when that happens, there's a lighthouse there. That's the first thing these people see when they accidentally warp in. And then they talk to two experts in world travel, Isiri and Powder, who live in this lighthouse together.
Now that they have the means of controlling where they go, for the most part, they just use that as the point of entry.
And the first thing they see is a mermaid.
Yeah, I like how Powder and Isiri are the welcoming committee.
It made me really happy to know that it was named after Sierra.
Yeah, it felt right.
That touched my heart.
Aww.
Hound is going to be there too. It's Powder's dog now, so Robo Dog, Sierra Memorial Lighthouse. This is like a sitcom.
Tau is also looking slightly different here. He's got shorter horns, longer hair, seen with Hanabi, who has been helping make these changes.
I don't know if I harped on it too much, but Hanabi was also there to help Tao with some glitches that they've been experiencing. Those glitches were the manifestations of some of their connected happenings, the after effects of merging into the displaced version of Tao.
Yeah. I'd imagine having their own world, which is probably arguably a part of them too, being destroyed, would lead to some major glitches. Geyser is there. Aura and Alriune are there. So we're having a grand old party at the bar.
Yeah, everyone was basically talking about where they've been, what they've been doing. Man, some of them were just out of bounds, like Athenos getting into tabletop war games.
Athenos is Athena, kinda. What are Athena's domains? Knowledge and war. It's perfect.
Yeah. Oh, man.
It also means that Smog could give him a pack of triple triad cards.
Which he did!
Because people can go freely between their worlds, especially now talk freely about their worlds, it made it feel a little bit more immersive to me. People were talking about, here's these things from my world, let me show you them. It was revealed that Powder was teaching Isiri how to read by using comic books. Tao asked Powder if she's read Death Note. That makes sense. Tao's from Japan, so like that's something that could happen.
I'm glad that Isiri's becoming literate. It makes sense to gain new skills along the way. You can't have all of knowledge and no way to impart it.
Real character growth.
Plus, I think it's super cute now, especially because she's going to be spending so much time in the light and on the surface. It's not an implausible thing for her to need.
Mm-hmm.
And
True.
Especially since I'm imagining she's the liaison between mermaid culture and human culture because she's been so immersed in it by now. It would be very important for this skill to be taught both ways. In this new political society that Dan has talked about, the socio-political situation, you're going to want the deep folk, the world's best diplomats, to be able to read documents.
I'm very interested in how this could evolve over time. What sort of problems does everyone solve together? What sort of adjustments does...
Poni is here with Horsefly. Horsefly donning a singular helmet as armor.
Oh yeah, they're
talking
protected.
about their adventures.
Yeah.
Very cute.
Carolyn had initially described for me as Poni going on to explore and chart other worlds, which made sense. Poni's current arc was being a wandering scholar. This was their way of improving themselves, learning new things, helping other people out. But in the moment, we had it that, yeah, Horsefly also came along for the ride. And
Name a more iconic duo than Poni and Horsefly.
So many people were bringing a +1, and they came around to Poni, and Carolyn was kind of like hedging, like she couldn't think of anything that's like, Horsefly, it's Horsefly. And that paid off very well.
Yeah, I thought that was great.
It was also funny coming up to her and having Smog fawn over the armor again, because this version of Smog hadn't seen it yet.
Oh, yeah.
Because this version of Smog is the one who donated his gun to use for parts.
Yeah.
So this is the first time he's able to see it.
It's so good. I'm so proud of that design. I was like, how am I going to mix all these elements together but keep it Poni/Shrek? And I think I did a good job.
Yeah.
It was so hard.
I'm sorry I infected more people with Final Fantasy.
It's okay. It worked out for the best because Poni looks cool as fuck. So
It goes hard.
It's very cute. Part of me wonders if Geyser would have visited Poni in her adventures. That was a moment of connection between them, talking about... But besides Horsefly as the companion, the Wandering Scholar's a solo thing with my trusty steed, but Poni is the trusty steed.
It's her sidekick. She needs her Watson or whatever.
Don Quixote and I forget the other guy that's there.
I would have said that one if I remembered what his name was.
Yeah, I don't remember it either.
It did make me wonder if your characters had run into each other or not. The easiest worlds to go to are the players' homeworlds and then the 5 worlds that you connected that you can still go to.
I would argue also any Final Fantasy world, considering that Smog had already talked about going to them before showing up there.
Right. Like, Smog had established that he had gone to other Final Fantasy realities there, so that's all in play.
You can play basketball with Mario now.
Hell yeah, brother.
Oh shit. Oh no, it didn't make me think of those ramifications now.
Mario RPG,
Not
let's
the
go.
Rammies.
If that means that Gino can be in the EFFETE universe, I'll allow it.
Amen, brother. Tao has been working on new material with Hanabi. They're working on a rock opera about our campaign, which is the sickest thing ever.
Hell yeah.
Zach knows how to play to me because we did a D&D campaign where I brought in a character who was not a bard, but one of the more talented musicians in the group, realized everyone else played instruments and was like, we're a band now. And we ended up making metal rock operas, doing like something between screamo and metal is what we talked about as our genre. I think he was playing to me a little bit.
I love it.
A fun moment for me too, because everyone's like, oh my god, we love your new material. Tao, you're so cool. And Geyser's like, let me play this right now. We're in a karaoke bar where people are drunkenly singing off key, and then you just hear metal playing. Geyser's like, I don't understand what's happening, but I think I like it. And I was like, maybe not when there's other music happening.
It's still Geyser, you know?
Yeah.
She's had a character arc for sure. It's still Geyser though.
I was still the problems clown, just a little bit. Fortunately, I caused no physical or emotional harm to any patrons or staff of Clam's Karaoke.
That time.
This time.
Geyser's still the problems clown, but she's also the solutions clown now too.
Exactly.
The clown of many options. Geyser's been fucking busy, surprisingly so.
It just makes sense to me for Geyser to have a focus because she's always been the person that's like, whatever's most immediate is the most important thing. Everybody else can care about a lot of things at once, but Geyser like thinks about the thing and we're doing this thing now, or thinking about this thing now. Part of that has been like her fascination with the sea, with water creatures and quote-unquote science, with piloting the Striders and the Harvestmen. So it made perfect sense in the immediate Geyser to be like, yeah, I'm gonna dig some shit in the ocean. And of course, Geyser being Geyser, causing problems initially without necessarily consulting the marine biology lab. Sierra's no longer with us to wrangle her, so it's up to his proteges, who are very smart and capable people, but don't necessarily have the same personality. It takes a couple of rounds of explaining, like, hey, you can't just dig and think it'll be okay. You have to consider, like, the structure, you have to consider stability and all that stuff, the materials that you're moving. We work it out and we make a little habitable place for like the river folk. Geyser's really proud of that, but Geyser's not thinking like, oh, I helped people and I did a good job. It's more like, fuck yeah, I made a river.
Is part of that I got to apply the knowledge that I've learned about marine biology?
Yeah. Geyser now has access to a lot of the data from a series memory that was extracted, is constantly working with the marine biology lab and probably giving a lot of them headaches. Once Geyser satisfied, she's like, I'm gonna go think about my world now. I have to make sure Jilly's okay. And that's the first reunion since she was sent away. And we didn't play that out. It wasn't necessary for me. Just making sure that Jilly's safe and okay and isn't trapped somewhere in the interdimensional portal happening. She's going about her life. She doesn't need Geyser anymore, and Geyser doesn't need her. They are separate people.
Yeah.
Jilly doesn't even participate in Geyser's shenanigans, really. She's doing the college shit, maybe has a partner. I don't fucking know. And then I threw in there that Ezra and Ruth got divorced.
We all clapped.
Sometimes people are bad people because they're in relationships that they should not be in. And if you fucking hate your wife and your child, maybe you should just be single. Still be a parent, still be responsible. I don't support deadbeats, but abandon your marriage. That's okay.
You will look at someone and say, I can make them worse, and you really do make them worse.
Yeah. The result of that is up in the air for the audience to interpret. What is Ruth going through and happening with, and what is Ezra doing with his life now that he's not married? And I don't really care. It's not interesting.
We were also surprised to find out that there is a version of Ruth that is alive back on your world, since Geyser did destroy her.
Yes.
Sammie and Alex, you both distinctly kept aspects of the realities that were present in the configuration. I didn't know how to go about this. So, my answer was not necessarily, because while things in the configuration were real, the configuration is all about the shifting of realities. I wasn't sure whether that meant that Ruth actually died or not.
I thought that the whole thing was Ruth being in the governance. She was in a version of the governments that weren't real people. So that's where I thought that was coming from.
Precisely.
So I accepted that readily. Jilly's independent. She's on her own. She has a life. I don't need to be your mother-daughter savior. You are you, and I am me, and I'm going to go do my business, which is trying to stabilize planet Congo, which I decided to leave also up in the air. We haven't really found a solution for that yet. I'm tying in all of Geyser's lore in this moment. Geyser is an imaginary friend who had their own dream world. Geyser entered the real world because Jilly became too powerful. Her magic became so powerful that it shattered the dream world, brought it into planet Conglom, which is technically Earth. It's just Earth plus all of the dream worlds that happen. Geyser was like, what if we found a way to stabilize people's magic so that they don't do that? The imaginary friends need to be transferred out instead of shattering the dream worlds and bringing them and the dream worlds. But we're still working on that. It's still under development and research. That is also a logical next step, considering all of the work that everybody did to connect worlds, quote unquote, in general. Exploring the portal concept makes sense. Geyser can apply her experience to 1, being in a dream world herself, 2, traveling in between worlds, 3, having access to World Lab scientists that built a portal system and shut it down.
I'm enjoying how evident it became in this epilogue session that everyone was using things that they learned from each other and this experience to solve problems back from their home worlds, which I think is perfect. That's, I think, the best it could be.
Geyser comes back with the taste of freedom that comes from being forcefully ejected from your world without supervision, and is like, I don't think I want to be cooped up in a group home. Her, along with her imaginary friends, decide, I want to integrate these people into actual society. So they're organizing. Geyser's a freedom fighter, you know? Tracy Ann, who is the head of the home that Geyser's in, is silently supporting, cannot, for risk of losing her job, say, yeah, I think we should knock all this shit down. She's aware of Geyser's antics and is not impeding her, where other members of the home of transfer entities would be.
So we catch up with Athenos and his tabletop and football enjoyment. Catch up with Isiri learning how to read. Everyone was invited to the wedding, so I didn't feel the need to talk about the wedding. Yeah, because Isiri gave Powder a gift to demonstrate that they're a couple. Sidetrack, being married is like a confusing thing to Isiri. She's like, I thought we already were together. What are you doing? But she was waiting for Powder to give her a gift. It's this locket that Powder has not figured out how to open, but that's okay, because Isiri would love to wear whatever, because she wore necklaces in the world of song. She gave Powder something permanent, whereas the traditional fish/whale blubber gift, you consume it, so it's a part of you forever. It's a perfect human analog for this ritual in her society, and I was just like, guffaw. It's beautiful. Isiri's fiddling with it at the table, and it's like, oh, there's like a hole here. Some psycho glass gets shoved into, and it opens, and on the inside is a blue object casting a shadow with the moon orbiting it, sitting in the shadow. And Powder's like, I have no fucking idea what that is. Looks sweet as hell, though. And Aura and Alrayun take a look at it, and Aura's just like, you should just show this to Terra or Umbra, it'll be a hoot. I love the implications of this. Spotlight's on Aura, so we catch up with Aura a little bit. The World Travel Lab, they're not going to expand it, but maybe there's like a defund or regulation coming soon. It's very unclear what the new government will do, and Aura's just like fielding opinions about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Smog's big piece in this is, we need you so that we can keep tracking the governance. They might not be done as a threat completely yet.
I love the detail that Dan gave that they're on the run. If Geyser wasn't so focused on the rivers and stabilizing her home planet, Geyser would single-handedly be the one chasing them. Like, y'all don't have to worry. Like, y'all take care of it.
Geyser with a chainsaw, like, blocking their space.
That's kind of what Smog was doing at the start, because part of the point of all the time shenanigans is Smog at the start was very violent and very willing to take people out. Any little remnants they needed to get rid of right after the events at the end of the game, he was fine to deal with.
Geyser at several moments promised the complete destruction of the government.
Yeah.
And that's something that she does take seriously. One, for harpooning Isiri, that is a grudge that she will never let go. Two, for stealing both Jilly and Susie. You do not harm the child. That's illegal.
Correct. I enjoy Isiri, the Abyss's response here is like, as if they'll ever find this place again. And Tao's like, what? And Isiri does not elaborate.
And Smog is like, hey, it might be a matter of time, alluding to the possibility that the whole governance thing is just a now solved time cycle.
Yeah. Isiri refuses to elaborate. Tao mentions that they're going to keep an eye on another and the other.
And that is kind of where things trail off in that part of the conversation. And then Powder's like, hey, you need to go talk to Alrayun.
You need to recalibrate your feelings.
It's been years. Stop doing this. Please. It could have been at the wedding. I wouldn't have minded.
Primarily indulgent for Sammie, because she asked for this. To be fair, I was setting this up too, but we had Aura and Elder at the very end.
I just adore Powder, like, narrating this. It's like they're talking, wait for it, wait for it. There it is. Powder's a terrible wingman.
Yes. This is true.
Well, during this, Smog is also pulling Tao aside for conversation because Smog has not seen Tao in Sequence Charter for quite a while, because this is the other version of Smog, setting up later on Smog having the idea to get rid of his gun and to make the Zetaflare virus, which he'll start talking to Hanabi about creating because it's based on Tau tech.
The self-fulfilling timeline, which is probably one of my favorite ways that time travel could be done, because man, it gets so complicated, but it is the one where the time travel happened because the events fulfilled the necessary causes for that time travel.
Yeah.
All the right things happened in that sort of sequence.
All right, time to pay everything off.
Yeah.
And leave the middle still open so that we can do what we want in this epilogue.
Our party dwindles into the night, and then we cut an unknown amount of time later to Terra having Tao and Isiri join her on her next trip. She goes back to a particular world. They enter in through Tao's hallway system, and Terra finds a doorway. It's a very specific doorway, and as she opens it, she finds a room filled with chrome and computer monitors and all sorts of crazy techs and gadgets, and a woman inside with a lab coat.
I think importantly also cots. Lots of cots.
Lots of beds. So many beds.
This is something that I wanted to run by Alex to include at the end. This was a very profound way of connecting this game to not just the campaign that Terra was, but also the previous other.
Yeah, instead of Tony Tara meets Tanya, who was the almost GM PC or MacGuffin, whatever combination of those things apply for Zach's game. She was a little bit older to fulfill the different relationships that she had with each character, because at the start of the game, I asked everyone to help me define the character by giving me their character's relationship with them. But otherwise, it looks like a slightly similar female version of Tony and speaks in a southern accent.
Tara had gone to this place because Tao was the sole reason that she would be able to go here. But what Tara thought she was doing was going back to Tony to complete her sort of vow to them that she made at the end of that game. But Tony is no longer around. It's very bittersweet in a way because, God, after decades of work on Tara's end, it's not exactly the same as she sort of intended. And the circumstances are a little worrying for Tanya.
Tanya has been able to get in contact with most of the other player characters from Tara's original group, except Dee's character, because Dee's character is also on Geyser's world, so that was also a prohibited space.
Mm-hmm.
And it was strange because they kept bringing her up. It was like, yeah, this is from Paris's world. I'm like, what are y'all talking? Why are you saying this?
It's because of the thing that you established that we were trying to weave back in here.
It really is all my fault because I was just like, it would make sense that Geyser's from Paris's world because they would never meet or interact, but Paris is the literal opposite of Geyser as a character. They both come from Earth. Geyser is from the UK, really. Paris is from a city like Baltimore, but not exactly Baltimore. It's nice to me to think of it that way, but this is something that I've discussed with everyone before, that they would be from the same planet.
Here's a fun idea that you don't have to take. Paris wakes up at the end of her game with a Tony who is her brother, who she didn't remember necessarily being her brother. Is it possible that the first intersection of worlds that started these events was Tony coming in to meet Paris? This is the origin of all the imaginary friend events.
So Paris was the first person to dream up a person.
I love that. Oh,
Oh,
I do really like that. I do really like that.
Oh, that's so fucking good.
Going into this, I did not want to stipulate what happened to the other player characters' worlds. I distinctly wanted to make this, it didn't have to be beyond this. This is just a consequence of Tara's world in particular. But I do like the fact that there was another tangentially related consequence on Paris and Geyser's homeworld because of the same experience. It just, like, it manifested in a very different way.
It's so good. Oh, it's so satisfactory.
Circling back to Tanya being surprised by the mention of her coming completely into existence, is that part of the experiments they're doing, getting people together, trying to figure out how best to integrate people from different worlds, is the other and other keep coming up in these simulations and suppressing them from coming out. She's like, well, I guess we don't have to worry about that as much anymore, but we know ways to contain them, so you have the experts on call now.
Excellent. Yeah. Goody gumdrops. I'm sure both Tao and Isiri appreciate the help.
That was definitely a big side effect of all of this, is these extra dimensional entities of breach containment. I'm sure it'll be fine.
We'll figure it out.
I got to wrangle in a character from a game that no one in this group had played before, who has been in contact with the Council of Tonys that are still doing this experiment to Theo. So Theo has a home base that we situated as part of the simulation, so Theo's always able to take a nap and head over there whenever he wants, and has been helping change these experiments, make them hopefully slightly more ethical, and also ended up helping in the containment efforts, so is sort of the leading expert on that. Contact with Tao to help figure that stuff out.
I'm just so happy that Tara gets to see her friends again.
Tanya puts some sort of measurement device through her door. It's like, oh yeah, I can get in contact with Paris now. I've contacted your other friends. Let's see what we can get done to have a meeting with all of you again.
I'm gonna cry.
Yeah.
So we conclude. That's it. Everything's been touched on. Game over. Good game, guys. I'm not sobbing. You're sobbing.
I'm not sad, you are.
I'm honestly happy with where I left everything, Smog.
Yeah.
I got to tie up pretty much everything I wanted to.
I'm happy too. This is about... I came into this game with very little preconceived notions of what would happen to Isiri. I just knew who she was as a character. But now that we're here, I'm like, oh my god, it couldn't have happened any other way.
Yeah.
For this session, not the game as a whole, is there anything you wish you could have done differently or had an opportunity to do?
Not really. I don't think I have any regrets. I mean, I would have loved to go on and on with, like, specific adventures that you all had done.
Yeah.
But within the span of the session, I think it was good.
No regrets.
Everyone got to do exactly what they said they wanted to do, but I do wish that we'd seen a bigger scene for all of the characters. But if they didn't want that, they didn't want that, so it's fine.
I feel selfish saying this, but I'm like, I understand because of our time constraint. I really wanted to have the conversation between Isiri and Terra be, like, in time rather than me sort of glossing over the details. But I understand that, like, with our setup, it wouldn't have really worked. By God, to be a fly in the wall in that conversation. But I really want to know what Powder's reaction, because Powder did hear that Isiri is the Abyss in last episode. So I really want to know how she took that revelation. But other than that, yeah, like everything that happened, chef's kiss, beautiful, loved it.
My wife is infinite. What do I do? Ask Reddit. The only thing that I wish that I got to do a little bit of this session is introduce y'all to the character of Jilly, because she's such a huge part of Geyser's backstory. A little story time would have been nice, but I don't think that was appropriate at this time. The Jilly that I needed y'all to see was Jilly as a child. So you can kind of like get the psyche of Geyser, but Jilly now has been minding her business this entire time, aggressively.
What if we had more time?
Let's get into the resolution phase, the segment of the show where we each get to say something about this lovely game with no responses. What is your final say on this session, Daniel?
I had fun. I think it was good. That's all I feel like I really needed to say. I do not have any social media, so you can find me just a world away.
What about you, Dee?
There's always time to do the right thing, but you have to make the right choice at the right time. You can find me on Twitter at @BlackSliderD, on Blue Sky at BlackSliderD, on Instagram at IHadACowLOL. That is also my PSN name. We can exchange Switch friend codes and play games there too. Again, I've been playing Yu-Gi-Oh! A lot. I'm the #1 Labyrinth player in the world, 100% win rate. That's a lie.
Yeah.
As far as recommendations, I have been watching this K-drama on Netflix called My Demon. It's about this demon. His job is to collect souls, and his power gets transferred to the main heroine, and they are forced to live life together. There's family drama on her end too, and economic and political scandal, and there's all the K-drama overdramatic bullshit that we all know and love. And it's cute. It's a cute show. And if you like K-dramas and you like edgy bad guys, quote unquote, you'll like this.
And for you, Alex?
I didn't get to talk much about what was going on with Juice at the end here because there's so much for Smog to wrap up. But I like to imagine that he just keeps getting larger and larger until he's like planet-sized, taking out any dead planets. You can find me on Blue Sky at Shining Crowbat. This week, I recommend Get on Your Knees. It is a comedy special that takes a look at oral sex through the lens of poetry and literature. I laughed my ass off. I was not expecting to have so much fun with it. A lot of it is the play between like high and lowbrow humor. So if you like that concept, please check it out.
And for myself, do you guys want to start over and do it all again? You can find me drifting at the edge of this star-swept night. This has been Resolve, an afterplay show. You can find us online at most social media sites at Resolve AP.
Except Instagram, which is @ResolveAfterPlay.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. You can buy the game we're playing, Interstitial, Our Hearts Intertwined, from its creator, Riley Hopkins, at linksmithgames.com.
All links will be included in the episode description.
Thank you again for listening. We end our turn here, so now it's your turn. Tell us what's happening in your game.